All right, good evening, everybody. It is 2 minutes after 6 p.m. This is the regular Board of Alderman meeting for the town of Spencer for the month of November. And with that, we do have all of our board members present. And we officially call the meeting to order. And Mr. Muhammad will begin with our invocation.
Okay, with a clear heart and mind, Lord, we come to you as humbly as we know. Strengthen our board as we prepare to make decisions for the greatness of this town. We're appreciative of the staff and the residents of this town as well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board, you have before you your agenda for this evening. Is there any reason to make any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? And if there are none, we will accept a motion to approve it.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second. There's a motion by Ms. Sledge and a second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And our agenda for tonight is approved. We're going to begin with a few recognitions, and we'll start with our Mayor Pro Tem, who has several recognitions to make, two starting with our schools.
Hey, one of the most fun parts of being on the Board of Aldermen for me is serving as the school liaison. And we try to support the schools in any way, and also to acknowledge anyone who is excelling in the schools, especially the students. And every quarter we name a student of the quarter from each school that submits one. Tonight we are lucky enough to have one of our students of the quarter and his family with us. And I'm going to ask that Juan Pablo Luna Ramirez and his mom, Miss Ramirez, who is the ESL teacher at Northland High School, so she's involved in our schools too. And your other two family members can come up also. And we're going to show you what we do with, we present each one of the students with a plaque. At first we were going to get a gift certificate, but this is something they can keep for the rest of his life. And as you know, he's very young, so when he gets older and gets out of school, he's going to have this showing that he was already a good student, even in elementary school. And he was selected by his teachers because they said he is always polite, he's pleasant, he teaches them about Columbia, the country where he came from, and they have learned so much from him, and they have really enjoyed having him in class. They said he was just a delight. And after I met his mother, I saw where that came from. So congratulations to you, and you can come up here and meet the rest of our board.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Congratulations.
He had a lot of toys for a child that day. He didn't know he was going to do all this.
She got it recorded.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that wonderful child to our school.
Stay.
And yourself, too.
Just have him sit right over there.
Well, I figured he would want to. For those of you who don't know what ESL is, that's English as a second language. So she works with our students who are learning English, and they're not all, if I'm not mistaken, Hispanic speaking. You have several languages. So she works with teaching them English. So we really need teachers like her at our schools. Thank you very much, and thank you, Juan. Our other student of the quarter is from Northland High School, and she's not here tonight, but her name is Kimberly Velasquez Hilario. And her teacher, Mrs. Harris, said this about her. She comes to school with excellent behavior. If she has to miss school, she always regularly and responsibly comes and gets her missed work. That's a very big thing to do in high school. She asks questions when it's needed, and she is responsible and helps any kids, any teachers with anything. And for this reason, I choose her. So congratulations to Kimberly, and she also received a plaque at their awards ceremony. So congratulations to these students, and we'll have more next quarter, second quarter. And that'll be coming up soon. I also want to recognize Mr. Taylor and his department. I had someone ask me the other day, where can I go to enjoy a Hallmark Christmas? I said, have you not been downtown in Spencer at night? They said, not for several weeks. I said, well, I think you need to go because it looks like a Hallmark Christmas out there. It's beautiful. I have to bring Ryland to Polar Express or pick them up, so I see it twice a day. But I'm not tired of it yet, and I'm not even that big on Christmas decorations, but you can't help but get happy when you see how nice it looks, how well kept it looks, and they have just gone over and above. And the museum has too. Everything just looks wonderful. And of course, Joel now, after we get through the parade, they will be working, they're already working on it, I'm sure, Winterfest. So this is a very, very busy time of the year for them, in addition to the league collecting and the new garbage truck. So they have had a really, a lot of challenges in the last month. So I just want to give them a round of applause too.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And our next recognitions, I believe we have Sky joining us by Zoom. Is that right? Maybe.
Okay. Folks getting an open call for trunks, and I believe we had probably 18 to 20 trunks set up. Our Winterfest group was set up with the gingerbread house display and promoting the Doodad parade coming up and all the Winterfest events. So it was a great turnout. Over we think 400 to 500 people came out and participated in that, and so all around everybody got involved. It was a team effort, and had a lot of fun in the process. So great, thanks everybody.
And we also had our principals from the North Lorraine Elementary and Middle School as well, who had done a trunk. So that was great to have them involved as well. And thank you to you and the staff for supporting it. It was a fun evening.
Nice costume too.
That's right. Best Mario I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
All right. Any other recognitions from the board this evening? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to public comment, and we do not have anyone signed up for public comment this evening. Mr. Franzese, have we received any written comment?
Not to my knowledge, and I will let you know that Anna is with us via Zoom. So we have a virtual clerk tonight, in case you'll be hearing from her a little bit later.
Great. Okay. All right, board. Before you is your consent agenda. We do have several items on that. Is there a reason to pull any of these items for further discussion? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve it as presented.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. House, or second? Second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right, all opposed? Our consent agenda is approved this evening. And we will now move forward to item number 8, which is to consider adopting the core strategic plan. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Board of Aldermen. We had an opportunity to provide the draft of the Creating Outdoor Recreation Economy Strategic Plan to you at our pre-agenda meeting last week. And there was one part of it that was missing. And that is, it's the person who helped us do it. And Jeff Emery is here with us on Zoom. So if you can bring Jeff in, please. Jeff is a planner with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. He coordinated the core process and has been really a driving force between in bringing a lot of different folks together to work on this plan. And so we wanted to give Jeff an opportunity to say a few words in advance of the board potentially considering adoption of the plan. So Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Joe, and I want to thank the mayor and board for allowing me to speak. I apologize, I was not with you last week. I had unfortunately, was diagnosed with COVID last Wednesday, but I am feeling better now. But I want to acknowledge the tremendous help the staff was, and particularly the work group, in going through the CORE process. CORE, of course, stands for Creating Outdoor Recreation Economies. The town of Spencer applied to participate in the program. It's been several months ago now, and we got started in the early part of 2023. And I know Joe went over the executive summary with you at your work meeting last week, but I just want to reiterate one thing. The plan we're proposing contains 3 goals, 19 objectives, and 54 actions. So again, I really commend the work group for coming up with so many good ideas, and I think this is a plan that the town of Spencer will be able to utilize for the next several years. Some of the actions I would point out are already taking place. I really commend the town for how progressive you've been when it comes to your comes to recreation and your outdoor recreation economy. So it was a pleasure. I did have a partner with this, Kyle Case. He's my colleague. But I just want to say thank you for letting me speak briefly. I can answer any more questions, but on behalf of the Department of Commerce, we would ask or request that you take action to adopt the plan, please. So thank you for letting me speak.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Emery. And I know we had a chance last week to thank the folks several of the folks that were here that were part of the focus group of the steering committee. But Jeff, I don't think we've had a chance to thank you in the Department of Commerce for working with us, for all the time that you spent in leading us through the process. We're really, really appreciative and grateful to have been a part of this pilot process with you.
Thank you, Mayor. And should the board elect to adopt the plan tonight, I will get you the final copy with the adopted date. So the staff will have the copy. But again, thank you for thank you. It was a pleasure on behalf of my team to work with your town.
Board, are there any questions for Mr. Emery or Mr. Morris at this point? All right, hearing none then, is there a motion to adopt the CORE strategic plan?
I move that we make the motion that we adopt this CORE strategic plan for the town of Spencer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Emery. And Joe, thank you very much for leading us through the process.
You're welcome. If I could make one bookend comment, I was able to talk to Jeff this afternoon, and he assured me that if we have any questions or things that we need to work through, he was at our disposal, and will happily meet with our group to help implement the plan.
Wonderful.
That's
Thank
correct.
you for your help.
Thank you.
Feel better.
All right, board, next on our agenda is to consider approving the Carter House rezoning at Standback Forest. Mr. Ball?
Mayor, members of the board, at your pre-agenda meeting, we made a presentation on the proposed rezoning of what is called the Carter House property from SFR2 to CIV or Civic. The purposes behind that obviously have to do with using that building for park-related purposes and education and possible classroom staffing, bathrooms, etc. Those will be determined in the future. So you have before you some language for the proposed approval of the rezoning. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We do have the PowerPoint still in the computer. If you want to see it again, we can do that. But otherwise, we would just ask that you approve that rezoning based on the motion language in your package.
All right, board, you have resolution 23-26. And that is related to these property. Oh, let me see. Nope, that's not the right one.
I don't think you have a resolution. It would just be language.
That was the standback forest one. Okay. So, board, you do have then the proposed language for considering this rezoning. We will entertain that at this point.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve staff's recommendation as presented. Rezone parcel 031131 located at 401 11th Street from RMST to the CIB zoning classification.
All right, thank you, Mr. Howe. There's a motion by Mr. Howe. There's a second by Mr. Morgan. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously.
And you also
Mr.
need
Mayor.
to adopt
Statement of sufficiency.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find that this rezoning is consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan for requirements of North Carolina General Statute 160D-605A. Said plan stating specifically, land use decisions should recognize the park, open space, and recreation needs of the community and reserve property to meet those defined needs when possible, and recognition that to attract younger, more affluent families to our area, the town must provide amenities that will be found attractive by this demographic. Recreational choices of this demographic include soccer fields, bike lanes, passive parks, and greenways. We further find that this rezoning to be reasonable and always prescribed by North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605B. This rezoning will be beneficial to the citizens of the town of Spencer.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sledge. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Miller. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All right, let's hold on the question. We have a little bit of discussion before. You're okay.
Mr. Muhammad was looking for the actual
Okay.
information.
We'll give you a moment then.
We'll proceed.
Okay, Mayor. All right, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously as well. Thank you, Mr. Blunt.
I'll just stick around.
Okay, sounds good. Next is our town clerk is joining us remotely, and she will be presenting us with certificates of sufficiency for 2 additional proposed annexations. And this is for Innispec and for the proposed truck stop on Long Ferry Road. Good evening, Mrs. Ward.
Evening. Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Board. So you'll find, Mayor, you actually have the original copies in your folder there underneath the resolutions. And the rest of the board, you'll find copies in your agenda packets. But I have investigated the both of these annexations, the Innispec and truck stop annexation petitions, and found them to be sufficient.
Okay. So we do have the certificate of sufficiency for both of those 2 proposed annexation properties. Board, are there any questions at this point for the clerk or for Mr. Blunt? And if there are none, we will accept a motion to accept those certificates of sufficiency.
I don't see the language, but I move that we accept the town clerk's presentation of the designation of sufficiency for these projects.
Okay. So there's a motion by Ms. Sledge. Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. All right, the next item, board, is to consider adopting two resolutions. One is 23-24 and one is 23-25 for both of those two proposed annexations. And these are resolutions that set the official public hearing dates for those annexations. Mr. Blunt, anything you want to add on that?
Just that we are taking steps, as we've done in the past, that are required by statute to work our way through an annexation process. These are both contiguous annexations. The Standback Forest annexation was done in your consent agenda, but it also set a public hearing date. So what you're doing today is setting public hearing dates for your first meeting in December for these three annexations, and then at your second meeting in December, we will ask you to consider adopting the annexation resolutions. To answer your question about the language, the certificate of sufficiency, what the clerk looks into is the petition that was submitted by the property owners to find out if the petition gives a legal description, whether it is signed properly, and whether the people signing it are the actual owners. So Ann and I worked together to go through those petitions to make sure everything was copacetic, and it was. So now we're asking you to set the public hearing dates. Normally we don't have to jump through these kind of hoops, but this is by statute. We want to do it exactly right.
And board, that would be the December 7th pre-agenda meeting. Correct, Mr. Blunt?
That is correct.
Okay. At 5:30. So board, if there are no additional questions, is there a motion to set that hearing date for 5:30 p.m. on December 7th for both resolutions?
Make a motion that we do set that date for that recommendation.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. So these are set for December 7th at 5:30. Thank you, Mr. Blunt. And with that, we will roll right into our departmental reports, and you can stay right there.
Didn't have to sit down at all tonight. Members of the board, I have presented my written report for the month, and as I was thinking about that tonight, I'll certainly be glad to answer any questions about that report. But I think in our December department report, I'm going to be a little more expansive about what we've accomplished this past year and the things we've got in the pipeline. I've gotten to the point where I have to carry around schedules trying to keep myself straight on annexations and rezonings and corridor studies and planning meetings. So we will have a little more of a report next month, but this month you've got a written report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, board, any questions for Mr. Blunt?
This is on your monthly activity report. Is that the one we're talking
That's
about?
what we're doing right now.
I did have a question.
Okay.
And someone had asked me about the possibility of having chickens, and I see that you had a question about that, and you answered it. And I know that our noise ordinance regulation, I guess, is the one that has something to do with that. That they're, not roosters are not allowed to crow.
We've actually got a livestock ordinance.
Yeah, it's part of the
code
livestock
of ordinances that requires that you have 2 acres of land to keep any livestock. And we get questions a couple times a month, people wanting basically to keep chickens. And for the most part, we have to say no because their property's not large enough.
Is that something that we could or should consider? That's other municipalities have made those adjustments to.
It's surprisingly controversial because while it is a very progressive move in my mind to provide fresh food to people that want to put a little effort into raising chickens or having a garden in their backyard, I think those are good things for the population to wake up next to chickens, even hens clucking and fussing and going on in the early morning hours. Some neighbors don't want that. So I'll leave that one for y'all to juggle. I think
What he's saying is we can discuss it. He would advise against it.
the 2 acres blocks almost everybody. You might want to consider at some point dropping it back to 1 acre, but then keeping the number of chickens very small.
Right.
But again, I'll let y'all suffer the
We,
consequences.
we also have to keep in mind that we routinely hear dog complaints, and we probably have our hands full enough with
They'll walk even more
that
than they see
to some
chicken.
Yeah, that
extent.
leads to a question I had. Has anybody revisited our ordinances regarding barking dogs and who is ultimately responsible in terms of enforcement?
The police chief can probably address that better than I can. During his report, he has enforced it by charging at least one family, I think, several times, and they've gone to court over that issue. So he can give you an update on that.
And I believe that's based on some complaints that we have heard as a board, previously. So, yeah, it's maybe not opening up a can of worms to talk about that, but maybe opening up a can of chickens. So, but it's definitely something. That to me sounds like a good strategic planning topic.
I'm trying to think what you call a huddle of chickens. A flock.
A flock of chickens.
Yeah, flock.
And if y'all don't need me anymore, I got to get back to the magistrate's office. So have a good evening.
Thank you. Hold down the fort.
Thanks, Steve.
Make them pay.
All right. Mr. Harris, anything on your end to update for planning?
I can provide a few quick updates.
Great.
Well, I guess next week we have an important HPC meeting insofar as the town park, as well as the park pavilion, and the ATM kiosk will be before the Historic Commission for review. And so that should be a fairly interesting meeting. We have restricted the agenda to just that topic, and so the committee will not be reviewing any other permits next week, so that they can focus their attention on the Town Hall Park project. I will provide the CDBG update. As you all know, the Housing Selection Committee did meet last month on October 12th, and they have made their selections. And we are currently going through the next step of that process. We have a few more administrative steps. We're working with Nance and Overby out of Salisbury to do title opinions. There's a real estate attorney who's doing title opinions on all of the properties. That is required for any CDBG project. They are fairly expensive, and that's why we waited to only do title opinions on the ones that were selected. And then once that is completed, we are already sending our inspector out to do full construction on the highest scoring projects. And so as soon as those construction documents get in, we'll be bidding those out. So at this stage, we're working as fast as we can, and the projects will be bid out in the order of priority and the order that we receive final construction documents.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any other questions about any other range of activities that I've been up to?
Any questions, board?
Do we need to ask you about anything else you've been up to?
I don't think so.
Okay. Just checking.
Well, Kyle, thank you very much, and
right.
thanks for those updates and for the leadership on the CDBG.
Thank you.
Process. All right. Next, we will invite Chief File forward to give us an update on code enforcement and the police department.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Chief. Always my least favorite topic here at the beginning. Code enforcement is moving on well, as everybody sees based on the report. We're having really good response as far as our voluntary or enforced abatements, which basically means people are complying. So that depends on whether they comply before we send out an NOV or notice of violation or after, but they're still complying. So overall, if you look at the year to date, we've got 380 cases. 152 were a forced abatement and 125 were voluntary abatement. So that's good. Those are good numbers as far as getting compliance from the citizens. We do have a number of cases still open. I believe currently there's 24 NOVs that have been sent out or outstanding. For October, there were 32 total cases. So we're working hard to get all the complaints that are coming in and kind of triage what we have. You'll notice there'll be a little bit of a transition, obviously, as grass goes down. You're going to notice probably for the next 3 or 4 months, we'll kind of target some other issues that are out there without having a full-time code enforcement officer. Obviously, we're kind of triaging what we have. So grass goes down, we'll concentrate on something else until it starts back in the springtime. If you have any questions about code enforcement, I will try to answer those for you.
I got a question, please.
Go right ahead.
904 South Salisbury Avenue. That's the one beside the oral surgeon office with the jump
Yes.
piles. How's that coming around?
Well, pretty good. So that one's been called in more than once. So that, so the residence itself is under some form of rehab. They are actively working on it. So we've sent out 2 NOVs there, and they have complied on each time they've complied with it. Unfortunately, it is a vacant property. So as far as treating for rodents or anything of the such, we had them trim the yard down. They hauled a dumpster in, loaded up a bunch of garbage, and they treated the property for the rodents. I think I've not heard anything from our contracted code enforcement officer to anything different as far as that he's having any additional problems there. But there have been two NOVs, and they have both complied on both of those.
Have you had any complaints since then?
Not to my knowledge, not since then. Not since the first 2 complaints on it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Huh?
On that, just not that it's necessarily a direct board concern, but do we know why it's abandoned or why?
Yeah, I'm not sure the original cause. I know that the company that's rehabbing, I'm assuming they're going to put it up for sale, but they're going through. The last time I went by the property, they had the windows pulled out, putting replacement windows in it. So they are putting work into it. So I think ultimately it'll turn into a decent property. So just a little bit of time delay getting the company. If I'm going totally on memory here, I think the company that's rehabbing is out of Charlotte. It's not a local one. I believe that's where it was. But
I have my usual complaint. The last couple of months, I've been looking over the reports quite a bit, and yet there's nothing. There hasn't been anything regarding any illegal parking in the North Salisbury area, Salisbury Avenue area, especially from Mustafa's on north to the 1200 block. I mean, there are vehicles crammed and jammed in front of the houses, beside houses, and behind houses. There's a just beyond or just this side of Hendricks. There's a house there that has a camper or a truck and a camper pulling a trailer, and there's also a big, huge step van that are parked in the backyard. And I see this stuff daily, and it's not like I go out and look for this stuff. I pass it every day, and I beg to differ with the reports. Things are not getting better. They're getting worse, especially in that area. If residents don't know by now that they're not supposed to park on unprepared surfaces, then shame on them. It's time that they were fined instead of just warned. If we're ever going to make a dent, and this has been a sore point for me in the 6 years that I've served as an alderman. It started in 2005 with Buddy Geddes, and it just seems to be pushed to the side, and certain areas are focused upon. High grass here or an abandoned vehicle there, when in actuality the main problems tend to be focused around vehicles that are parked illegally and vehicles that are parked on side streets. It took my I guess gnawing on the department about a trucker who would park his rig there on Ann Street and go and just leave it there. I would like to really see our code enforcement officer focus some of his time in getting this situation resolved once and for all, especially in the North Salisbury Avenue area.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. So Chief, I know I see 4 illegally parked vehicles. It looks like those are kind of more back this way in town. So do you have any idea as far as kind of the process by which our contracted code enforcement officer is looking at the parking issue? Is it just kind of as he comes across?
Yeah,
it,
I'll say probably not the answer you want, but not at
Yeah.
all. But yeah, I mean, we really are having to triage. I mean, we have him for 2 days a week. So I mean, he's got to have time to do the paperwork portion of it. So we may get 5 hours a day of working on the street, which is typically following up on the cases that are coming in. So we are triaging right now. So are we actively looking for those? We're not. We're absolutely not. We just don't have the manpower right now to look for them. Now, if they're keyed into the portal, he's following up on everything that comes into the portal first. So anything that's coming in based on citizen complaints, obviously that opens the case up. So he goes and follows up on that. So we're really going based on complaint driven right now. So definitely, if there are ones that have been there that need to be keyed in, as long as they're in the portal, he'll follow up on them. But as far as him going out actively seeking, I will tell you, I had myself and one of the new officers. We went out and rode around, and we built 14 cases in an afternoon. So we kind of built cases as we rode around, just looking at the city and showing him some of the areas. So in all honesty, we could work 2 or 3 full-time code enforcement officers 5 days a week if we really hit everything that's out there. So it really does feel like we're chipping away at a really, really big problem. So I think once we get a new code enforcement officer in there full time, we'll kind of direct some enforcement.
And so then I think that brings up the question as far as the process and where we're at in the process of looking for that full-time code officer.
The position has not been posted yet. We've been kind of working through the program as we have while kind of evaluating, but we recognize the need to fill the position eventually, and but it has not been posted yet. So we recognize though the need to move ahead on that.
And so then it hasn't been posted. Is there a plan for when that might happen, or what steps do we have to go through? I know we're working with Central Carolina right now to identify some, not just the contracted piece of it, but identify some next steps. But do we have a timeline for all of that?
No, it's just a matter of deciding that it's time to get it out there. We wanted to see if there were other solutions that we wanted to consider moving forward in this, but
and if I may share briefly, we've got a little bit of a temp fix. It is a temporary fix because we want to. So the problem with code enforcement is it's going to be very hard for us to hire a code enforcement officer that is pre-trained and has the abilities to walk in the door and just start working. That's going to be very hard to find. So we're very likely going to get an individual that may have done some form of other work that wants to come into that line of work, and we have to start from square one and train him. So what we do, I've actually got a part-time retiring deputy that is getting ready to come on with us in a part-time capacity. So he's going to be here for law enforcement, but he also has said that he'd be willing to help us out on code enforcement in the interim while we're looking for a suitable candidate for full-time. So the plan is that he will help out and supplement what Central Carolina is doing. He has no code enforcement experience, but it doesn't take code enforcement experience, like Mr. Morgan said, to see some of these problems. So if we've got somebody, we can at least have the manpower to send them out, and they can concentrate on some of those issues. There again, he would be able to build more cases in a day or 2 a week than what Central Carolina will be able to clear, though. So we're going to have a really fine balance until we get somebody full-time in here. Just knowing that when we get a full-time applicant and we select somebody, there's probably going to be a 3 to 6 month learning curve to really get somebody trained to where they have the abilities to come in here. It's real easy on the grass enforcement side. That's a real easy thing to take care of. But when you start talking about minimum housing, it gets above my head too. Some of that I don't know the avenues to take, and we have to rely on Steve a lot for that. So there's going to be a pretty severe learning curve for a new employee. So we've got the little stopgap that's getting ready to start. He actually will be starting in about a month with us. So by next board session, we should have him working part-time, which will help soften it a little bit as far as the code enforcement while we look for a suitable applicant on it.
And so that being the case, I mean, I think probably that leads to some urgency in getting the position posted so that we have time to find that person, because ideally we would have the Central Carolina part-time resource along with this other part-time resource that are up to speed that could then kind of train that other person and get them up to speed, so we don't just hand everything off to them all at once, and set them up for success, recognizing that's a 6-month process at least, to get somebody like that up to speed. So I guess what I'm saying is I would like to see the position posted sooner rather than later. It doesn't hurt us to post it.
And I am very happy. I think the retired deputy that's coming on part-time, his intent is to stay past. So his intent is to stay past and help us on law enforcement or code enforcement in a supplemental manner. So it's going to be good to have him as a backup. Even once we get a new full-timer in here, it's be good to have that part-timer as a backup, even if it's just the full-time guys working on major stuff and we need somebody in July to ride around and look for grass. We'll have somebody that we can actually put on that, and not stress the actual full-time code enforcement guys. So.
Are we keeping up with the complaint? So I don't know how many complaints a month. Let's say it's 15. Are we keeping up with that? Are we with the contract folks? Are we kind of getting the backlog?
Yeah, we're actually staying pretty consistent in that. So we're able to take care of basically everything that's coming in through the portal, and he's still self-generating some. So he's not actively going out and just generating a ton of cases, but he is self-generating as he goes to check on one that's being. Say one comes in from the portal. If he sees one in a couple block range, he'll usually go ahead and stop and log that one and go ahead and build that case. So I think we're staying caught up on what's coming in. I really wish more was coming in. It sounds kind of odd to say, but we really don't have. We know there's people that have complaints about neighbors and they don't want to log it into the portal, so then it sits for some amount of time until we just happen to stumble on it. So I know James used to preach on that. Please use the portal. Please use the portal. But it is important. It gives them something to go on. And once it's built in the system, they have to follow up on it. There's no way to delete it. So somebody builds it in there, it's going to come and it's going to go into this report and it'll sit there until it's resolved. So
is I guess to Mr. Morgan's point, I mean, my thought, and I think Mr. Mayor's already said this, but if they could get out toward where he is, kind of the northern end of town a little bit. I do know that, and I'm not sure where we are. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but the car facility, which is essentially a tent under a tree, is still a tent under a tree. Just thought about since we were talking about that. But on a more permanent note, and Mr. Dees is gonna throw something at me, but
let me move out of the way.
Just something, yeah, there you go, yeah. It's got a little give there.
He's retiring. I don't want your last meeting to go bad.
I'm just I'm talking out loud. I mean, and I get your point on the listserv for the planning listserv for the state. These jobs are open all the time. It's not quite as bad as it was a few months ago, but they're open all the time. Someone's always looking for a zoning officer. Is this something that maybe we should reach out to the Rowan County planning folks and see if they could help us out in a contract capacity or something, or some other? Yeah, and Central Carolina folks may be doing a fine job. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying in a more permanent setting, if we're worried about being able to employ someone, and I agree with you, we're going to hire someone, we're going to train, right? And then this person's going to get the skills and then go get a better job somewhere. Not a better job, but a higher paying job somewhere else. Is it something like that, you think, a better scenario, or should we? I mean, I guess should we be getting creative? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one good thing we've got a really good community to work with. So, I mean, if you get somebody in here and get them trained, we hope they'll have buy-in and want to stay here. So we do have a lot to offer that some of these bigger organizations don't. So, I mean, if we get the right person, but it's just going to be an extended process to find the right person, I think. I don't necessarily think that any organization providing supplemental will be better than the other. I mean, Central Line is doing a good job.
I think the key is we have a town that needs more than 2 days a week. I think that's what we're realizing.
Yeah. And truth be told, it probably needs more than 5 days a week, to be honest with you. It really does. So we, at the end of the day, even when we have a new full-time person, I'm probably still going to use the term triage, because we could go out and build hundreds of cases. If you go strictly by the code, we can build hundreds of cases at any given time. You know, whether it's, I mean, there's debris piles all over town. So if you really go based on that and you went out and built all those, there would be enough that it would take him months to clear out just those. I don't necessarily know that I have a good answer. I hate not having a good answer, but I really don't have a good answer. We're just going to chip away at what we can. And you know, I briefly talked with Peter about my idea is, I mean, you can send somebody to a training class, but much like on the law enforcement side, we do on-the-job training or field training. We're probably going to need to send our new code enforcement officer to work with some other organizations. It'll be on our dime, and they're not going to be helping us any, but to send them down and let them ride and be involved and see how some of these other organizations do their code enforcement would probably be beneficial. They're going to bring something back from that to help us and help them be more efficient here. So that is kind of my initial plan. Once we pick a suitable candidate and get them hired, would be to send them off for at least a few weeks to work with some other entities in the area. So.
Do complaints come in from, like, for example, I think about like Public Works. Do we get complaints from them, or is it strictly complaint driven by neighbors and friends?
Yeah, typically. I mean, if our guys or our Public Works or somebody sees an egregious violation, they would let us know about it. So we do build some cases and go in there and key them in ourselves. So I've keyed in maybe half a dozen in the last 2 months. Just where it's been something that's been brought to my attention, I keyed it in myself. But typically, it's complaint driven through the portal below.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Chief, I'm not piling on you as far as that goes. I know you don't want to talk about this, but Mr. Morgan, you blame Mr. Morgan for this because he brought up about cars. I did hear a complaint from one of our neighbors, and it's revolved around some of the streets around the front of the high school, where there is no parking signs, and there's high school cars, it's high school student cars parked there. Is there anything we can do about that?
I'm actually familiar with that one, so I should be able to answer it. If it is somewhere where there is no parking, then obviously we could enforce that on the PD side. We have received a couple calls about that, and we sent PD cars out, not code enforcement, and nobody was parked in a no parking area. They were just parked in front of people's houses, and unfortunately, you can park in front of somebody's house. Okay. So people do not like that at all. We actually, you would be surprised how many calls we receive about that. People calling about illegal parking because their neighbor or neighbor's friend or the neighbor's kids have people over visiting. They filled up all the spots in front of their own house. They don't have anywhere to park themselves. But our hands are a little bit tied on that one.
There are signs, like Newton Street's a good example. Well, there's a sign that says no parking here to corner. Right? And it's just basically to free up that sight triangle.
Yeah, they've had some situations where they've actually blocked people's driveways and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's really wrong.
Yeah, and I can think of now. I have one time in the last 2 years we have one very much like what you were talking about, where we went out there and had to find out who the owner was and have them move it. Typically, though, they haven't been in an area where we could tow it or force them to move. So it's kind of an unfortunate thing. It puts us in kind of a bad situation to tell the property owners here we can't make them move it. I know the school has tried really hard to get the kids.
But if they are blocking access to a driveway, they
can't. If they're blocking access, that's the ones that we've had moved before. Yeah. So.
But let me ask you a question: do they still charge to park at the high school at their parking lot?
Last I knew, they did. I'm assuming they still do, and that's probably a reason why some of them are parking off campus.
I can understand that, but at the same time, you look at it and you think, well, why are these kids parking there? They might be doing something illegal that they don't want to see on school ground.
Most of them don't want to pay the parking. I mean, that's just,
I understand that, but there's another rule to it too. I think that we need to look out for. See what I'm saying? And maybe just generate a car through there every once when school gets out, just to see what's going on. No. Okay, I'm sorry, but I want to bring it up.
All right, board. Any more rabbit holes we want to go down? Ms. Sledge.
Chief Fowler, I don't know if this is you, code enforcement, police department, or public works, but the sign at Whitehead and 3rd Street is gone. There is no sign there.
Yeah, you're looking in the right direction.
I'm trying to look back. I'm hoping I can pass this one off.
Well, and if it's Whitehead and 3rd, that's state maintained, and so that would be DOT, but Joel can follow up.
But there should be a sign there to say what the intersection is, should it not?
Joel can follow up.
Joel has really good contacts on that, so it's the first one I could pass the buck on, I think.
All right, board. Anything else on code enforcement? All right, on to police.
I'm so happy to go to what I enjoy and know.
The easy part of your job.
That's right. So I provided the standard monthly report. Calls are on an uptick, which we always anticipate around this time of year. So there were 1,885 events logged for the month of October. That did not include Halloween, so it cut off one day early. It'll start at Halloween for next month's report. So good numbers on proactive work as far as school checks and business checks. If you'll see on there, we did about 230 school checks, nearly 300 business checks of various types, and then obviously our park checks. There were, I did notice, and I figured this may be one to hit on, there were 4 shots fired. I know everybody always looks at those. Fortunately, one of those was a transformer blowing. 2 of them were unfounded. And unfortunately for Salisbury, the 4th one was actually on 15th Street, so it was not ours. So wanted to explain that one though, because I noticed that it had jumped up to 4 this month. So that was the cause for those. But if you don't have anything else on that, I will transition to the next item. All right. No,
Go ahead.
That was the easy part. I have attached the Axon quotation for in-car vehicle cameras. We wanted to kind of present this before the board and get a feel for what direction you want to go. I've met with Peter concerning this quote. So to kind of give a little bit of a back history on the in-car cameras at our agency, the ones that we had previously were bought out by another company. The new company that has bought them out, we have had severe problems getting them serviced, including the fact that when, if you remember back in, I believe it's 2020 or early 2021, when we had a vehicle totaled as the officer was coming to work, we sent the camera off because we could not download the footage of the accident. They worked on it, kept it for 9 months, and sent it back blank. So we've had a really bad problem with the ones that we currently have, to the extent that the new vehicles that have rolled in, we have not taken the old units out of the old cars and moved them over because we needed to find a better avenue and a better product to be able to utilize. If you're familiar with the Axon brand, that is the same one that provides our body cameras that we purchased a few years back. So this is a quote looking at basically they provide the cameras up front, finance them out while they're under warranty, and then as soon as the warranty period is over, you will have paid for the cameras in full and they're yours to use as long as you want to use them. We were able to negotiate the price down. In-car cameras are very expensive. I will not lie about that. So this is looking at replacing 14 of the cameras, which would still put us utilizing a few of our old ones for the number of vehicles that we have. It was originally over 140,000. I was able to get them on my last negotiation with them to come an additional 10,800 off the price. They are anticipating a 12% increase in the cost of these cameras on January 1st. So that was what the urgency was, to present it to the board. The only upfront money that we would pay right now would be $1,250, which allows them to go ahead and put the products in our vehicles. They will order them, bring them to the police department, install them here, and have us fully up and running, and then they will finance out, for lack of a better term, finance out at no interest the remaining balance of the car cameras, and they will be under warranty for the entirety of the payments. When that is finished, they are ours. So long as they work, we will leave them in service. So I wanted to get an idea of what the board's thought was on that. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of in-car cameras solely for liability. Liability of wrecks, liability of the officers interacting with citizens. We like to be able to provide that information to the district attorney on cases. This will very much simplify that process. So I met with Brandy Cook, the elected DA. There is a push for Axon to begin handling our discovery to the district attorney's office. So currently, when we have body cam footage that we record on our body cam, it automatically uploads. We don't have to do anything to it. We go in there and click a couple buttons and send it to the district attorney, and they're able to download it instantly. On our in-car cameras that are still functioning, we have to manually go out there with a portable hard drive, download the information. It takes a few hours to download it off the car. Then we have to come into the office, sort through it, and then purchase a hard drive that we give to the DA's office and they keep because it's discovery. We don't get it back. So they have mandated amount of time they have to maintain it. So we're buying hard drives, or in some cases where it will fit on a large thumb drive, we're having to purchase those and provide those to the DA's office that way. This will tie into what they are already looking at transition into statewide, where Axon will be handling all of the digital uploads, including the paperwork. So no longer will we be printing 400 or 500 pages and taking them a packet. That will be digitally uploaded. These car cameras would digitally upload automatically, as would our body cameras. It would build one package that we just click, send it to Rowan County District Attorney's Office, and it would send it. So it will be a significant savings for us as far as manpower and obviously stuff that we have to buy, whether it's paper and ink to print it or hard drives, portable hard drives that we're buying to send up there and give to them. Unfortunately, it is on the burden of the agency to provide those. So they don't provide it to us. So we buy them, use them, and then they keep them in a vault. They don't get to reuse them. They have to keep them for an extended period of time. So
one thing I'd like to add in, and it's on page 3 of this package, that this quote is for hardware for the cameras, the mounting equipment, that sort of thing. It's also for software licenses. It's also for the online data storage and that whole system that you just heard about. I believe there's also some functionality. This is the same company that makes the taser. And so there's some functionality that when certain things happen, doors open in cars, a taser gets pulled out, I think a gun gets pulled out, different things happen, the cameras go on, it's all integrated as kind of a seamless platform.
Yeah, it definitely integrates together. That's obviously they have the market cornered on this because they have a good product. So if you open the door to put a prisoner in, the prisoner cage camera automatically turns on and starts recording, and it records until you manually tell it to turn off. Turn your blue lights on, it's going to trigger that camera to turn on. If the officer's outside the car and they turn their body camera on, it's going to trigger the car camera to turn on, so you get a wider field of view other than just what the body camera's seeing. We see often unfortunately in the media where they like to pick and choose little portions of footage and try to paint law enforcement in a negative light. If you've got a body camera that's 2 foot away from somebody, you're going to see a lot different than what you're going to see from a car camera that's 20 foot away. So it's very important, and this is all it all integrates really well. We've had them come out and demonstrate the product to us. It actually does a lot more than what we put on this quote, because like everything else, if you start up fitting with all the little extra pieces that it can do, it runs the price up pretty significantly. But it has a lot of abilities as far as running license plates and looking for stolen cars, and there's a lot of extra stuff that we could add on, but initially this is just a base package to get us back to where we're recording, and we have that ability to provide it to the DA's office.
And with the discussion tonight, the idea is that again, the initial current year cost is less than $1,500, but this represents some future year budgetary considerations. So we're not asking you to vote on a budget tonight, but we want to kind of ask for some consensus or feelings that is this something we feel is a priority. Staff believes it's a priority, but would y'all have the consensus of a priority so that we could do this? This initial cost can be absorbed in the current budget, but looking at those future year budget considerations, we wanted y'all to kind of be aware of what that looked like down the road.
Yeah, so we're looking at $25,000 a year, basically,
roughly. Yeah,
going forward, $26,000, I guess, with tax. So, couple questions: how old are the current ones that we have?
They really vary in age. Some of them are, I'm gonna have to guess because they were bought way before me. Some of them are definitely in that 12 to 16 year bracket. We've got about half of them are totally obsolete and non-usable. So we've got about 7 or 8 of them that are totally done. They're beyond economical repair. We've got probably a good 5 that we are the old version but are still functioning. So our intent is to use them until they totally die, because the 14 will not cover every officer we have. but we're going to try to cover with the 14 cover our primary officers and our new vehicles, and then we will move the old remaining ones at work to either spare vehicles or vehicles that are used less, to where, as far as like a CID position for a detective, where there's less possibility they'll be out pulling cars over. So 14 was about our target number, though, to be able to add into what we have the still functions. It's a really good time to make the move, as far as everybody knows the new cars are in the back parking lot, so that way we're not pulling body panels out a second time and going through a secondary install. So we would have them kind of installed on the front end as far as when these new vehicles are upfitted.
So then what's the expected useful life of the new ones?
That's a hard thing to guess. I mean, my guess is at least 10 to 15 years. Even the sales guy, there's two avenues or ways that you can get this. This is a cheaper way. The more expensive way is the way we got our body cameras, where every 2 years they provide you a new piece of hardware. For the body cameras, that was kind of important because they're getting beat around, wore on a vest, getting in tussles and fights, and getting dropped on the ground. These are sitting in the vehicle, so as long as the vehicle's not in some sort of catastrophic wreck, there are people that are still running the Axon 2, which would be the version before this, and still having good luck with it. So I don't see that we would ever replace them until they cease to work or were no longer supported by the company. So I think we'll see at least 10 to 15 years use out of them. Pay for it the upfront 5 years, and then hopefully get another 10 after that.
What's the warranty on these things?
5 years.
5 years.
And so they cover basically they cover the warranty period until they're paid for. So they break it up until 2028. So they will cover it for that all of your payment years. And then once the program is officially ceased, then that's when the warranty falls off of it.
So if something was to happen and they malfunction, we would have to pretty much pay for them after that.
Yeah,
after we finish paying for them and the warranty
runs
out.
Right.
It'll be our responsibility to make sure that okay.
Yeah, they're officially ours at that point. Now, the good thing is, if you look at how the prices broke down on page 3, they do break it all up by the individual parts. So the one good thing to remember is if something happens in the future and a signal unit breaks, it would only be $279.
Right.
So we wouldn't necessarily have to replace the whole unit. It would just be the repair cost to get it back going. So I think the only replacement for the whole unit would be when it's totally just past its usable life, or if it's obviously tore up in a traffic accident or something of that nature. So.
Thanks for that clarification.
So they will, if a car is torn up in an accident, they will replace it. Is that right? Or insurance? Or
yeah, I think they would work that. I'm sure they would work jointly with insurance. Obviously, I mean, if the unit, it would be a pretty significant accident to tear it totally up based upon how it's mounted. So I'll tell you, these are mounted. I mean, you've got the individual camera heads that likely could get messed up in an accident. But as far as the actual core of the unit, it's going to be mounted in a steel box back at the storage solution. So it's really encased in multiple levels towards the middle of the vehicle in steel. So it would be very significant if that portion of it was ever tore up. That is kind of the reason I didn't even have them quoted, because I knew how much extra it cost on the body camera side for them to come out and replace the guts of it every 2 years. The likeliness of that tearing up every 2 years is very, very low. I think they know that. So he didn't really jerk me around on that. I concentrated on getting the initial quote down as far as the actual purchase of the raw equipment.
So then, Peter, I mean, the big question for the board tonight then becomes how you feel about being able to absorb this additional $26,000 a year into the budget, relative to other equipment needs that we have.
And one of the things that we were talking about is for the coming year, we think what we've currently programmed in with our vehicle replacement program will kind of be an even trade in a sense to take this on. Am I remembering that conversation correctly?
Yeah, I think so. We're really trying to concentrate on that vehicle replacement plan to keep from getting back in the situation we were before. Where we've been used to replacing 2 or 3 vehicles, I think we're going to have a few years where we will only need to replace 1. So that is going to, that budget line is going to go significantly
I'll keep talking. Oh, now I hear it back. Okay. Coming up. Do I need to stop talking while we fix this? Okay.
Technical difficulty.
So in the short term, we think it makes sense to consider it that way, and we want our vehicle replacement to continue in kind of a steady. We're doing, as you heard, a vehicle or two a year, so that we're not getting to the point where we want to have to do 5 or 6 at once, the way we have been within the last few years. And then over time, after next year and the years that follow. Not that we have any crystal balls for sure, but we've heard about the development and the different things that over time we think the growth will help support this in other areas. But without having all the revenue projections that it takes to really talk budget with you, that's we think there's a comfort level with proceeding that the way we see it, it should work itself through the budget process. Okay.
So you're asking for 14 units and planning to use 5 units that are currently not out of function.
Right.
So
yeah.
really,
Yeah. We've got 4 or 5 decent units that I think we can limp them along for a little while. Obviously they would be in vehicles that are used a little less often. So we don't. The goal is to not have any car out here riding around with no camera in it at all. Would be what my goal is. So we'll utilize whatever we have to and piecemeal what we can to get the remaining ones over the 14 to have some form of a functional camera in it. It's just going to be a lot easier. Those will be ones that are used less, so we won't have all those uploading problems as often. But it's kind of like the thing, we just have to have it in there, even if it's not being used. Unfortunately, we have to have it in there to have the ability for that one time when we really need it.
So in 2 years, are you going to come back and say we need more units?
I don't think, at this point, I don't think so. I think the only time that we would necessarily, this will basically cover the primary vehicles that are working the road. So I think the only time we would ever need additional units would be if we add additional staff. So now, to answer your question, yes, potentially. If we add additional staff, we could just buy a unit outright. So that would just be, calculated into that staff addition. So much like a vehicle would. So we would just know that, there would be a $10,000 or $12,000 cost to upfit a new vehicle with a new camera for a staff member that's going to be an addition. So, but as far as our current allocated staff, I don't believe we would be asking for any more in quite some time. Definitely not during the 5-year contract period with them.
Yeah, how many primary unit cars do we have? And then how many total do we have?
We have to make the count real quick. So we have 17 primary,
okay.
And then we maintain about 5 spare vehicles. So we have 1 or 2 unmarked spares. There will be like administration and detectives, or whoever needs them for whatever assignment they're under, plus our marked spares. Obviously, our marked spares are a little bit higher right now. We've got a few that are getting ready to go to the cell line. I'm not sure if Joel's got them listed yet, but it's coming soon. Okay. So we've got a few that we've got decommissioned, but we are keeping those a little bit higher than what my level will be once we get these new vehicles upfitted. So the 5 or 6 that we can make plus this 14 will get us very close to covering what will be our kind of final resting place on vehicles.
What about the special unit that we're putting in place?
Yes, ma'am. That was calculated in the primary ones. They definitely will be 2 of them because those are ones where obviously the more encounters you have, the more traffic stops you make, the more calls you run. Those are going to be ones that are really going to be heavy on the digital upload. So, in the quote, it gives us a bank basically of unlimited storage for these, knowing that we will have some that won't use a lot of storage. We're going to have some like that new team that's going to use a lot of online storage for all their interactions. So, and that's kind of factored in there, but those are covered in this.
A word of caution, I guess to you, Peter. And you're bringing this up reminds me of an incident that happened, and it must have been 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if it was the fire department or the police department that bought something. It was an item for either cars or fire trucks or something, and they didn't get the proper warranty background or checked. And when the units failed, I wish I could remember, something happened and they started failing one after the other. You couldn't get parts, you couldn't get service, you couldn't get them maintained. And the legal document, I think, and this is prior to the J coming on, when Rivers Lawther, it seems like the town was stuck with purchasing several $1,000s worth of equipment that became useless and basically trash. And I apologize for not, but again, I would make sure that the warranties are good and solid. The maintenance contracts, the service contracts are all up to snuff before you go this direction.
And just very briefly speak on that. It's basically a bumper-to-bumper warranty for the initial period. So they actually have installers that are either certified by the company for installation and repair, or they will send somebody to us. So there are a few authorized facilities, and then they also have a mobile team that comes out if you have issues. I will say Axon, it has been, here again, I'm going to have to guess, but Axon has been in business longer than I've been in law enforcement. So probably in the 90s, I think, is when they kind of made their debut. It started, I believe, out towards the West Coast and kind of moved across. So they really built a good product. So I do know some organizations and other departments that are using their cameras. Obviously, we've been very satisfied with our body cameras, and these work very, very similar as far as the ease of use. So you don't have to be a computer programmer to use them. It's one button to trigger, and it automatically uploads. So it makes it very easy for the officers. They really don't have to do anything. There again, it also takes out of that, some organizations use cameras where the officers download the footage, and there's always that thing in the back of somebody's head, did they go mess with the footage? That's why we chose to use Axon cameras. They dock up, they automatically upload. There is no going in there and deleting the footage. There's no going in there and altering the footage. What you see is what happened. So it is a very good product as far as that goes.
So I'm going to ask the $130,000 question. We've got a bunch of needs as a town. One of those needs being, we've heard that we need additional full-time fire staff. So we know that's something we've got to address. We know we're also, we're having needs for parks and recreation as well, including additional staffing. So as we look down the road, I know we've got to have this new technology, but I also don't want to make sure that we're not sacrificing meeting our staffing needs for new technology. And so I want to be assured that we can address all of that moving forward before we were to move forward with approving something like this.
Well, I certainly understand that we have not gotten to the point looking ahead with revenues to really have the perfect answer or knowledge about how we're going to prioritize all that. And so again, in the short term, we feel like what we are showing is going to be able to be absorbed into the budget. If we were going to do the same budget next year that we did this year, we think there would be kind of a zero gain involved. It's really a matter of we've had to, over the last few years, again, purchase more vehicles than we probably wish we would have. And now that that's kind of settling down, we think that presents an opportunity for this. So that's about as helpful as a description as I can give.
I just want to be sure that as a board, we're not sending a message that we're valuing stuff over staff.
Sure.
And I think it's all needed, right?
Yep.
And I think it's just having the assurance that we can make those staffing hires that we need to in the future in addition to keeping up with the technology? I think that's the big question mark.
Yeah.
But 12 to 16 years out of them, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
It's better than a computer.
And obviously, looking at the forecasted payment plan, I mean, we discussed briefly, next year, looking at the line item where we purchase our vehicles out of, or capitalized line, or whatnot, we probably could make a significantly larger payment than the $23,750 that is next year's payment up front, and lower the additional years and still maintain a flat budget on the PD side, because we won't be asking for 2 or 3 vehicles next year. So there will be on that capital side, there's going to be some funds that would be freed up. We kind of looked at that, and they can build our payment plan however we, whenever we sit down over the financing portion of it, they can build the payment plan however we desire to do it. You still would get the same length of the warranty, but you could pay them up front, more, because the needs on the vehicle replacement would be lower. So there's definitely there's some ways to make the numbers change a little bit, whether you pay it up front while you're not looking at vehicle replacements, or pay it, stretched out over time.
So I think this might bring up, we got in this situation a few years ago when we had all these vehicles that we needed to replace at one time. I think this lends an opportunity for us just collectively to start beginning into looking, just like our fleet management program, doing some type of technology management plan where we can begin to plan out when these things are going to phase out.
Yeah.
And maybe you're already doing that. It's just, that way we know from year to year what's built in for those technology replacements, and we're not having to, at least we're not having to swallow this at $130,000 flip in 1 year, obviously.
Say in the next 5 years, do you know of any other equipment that needs to be updated as far as the police department goes?
So we kind of already are on a plan, similar to what the mayor was talking about. So we try to make yearly purchases of the high dollar items, tasers and radars, and the stuff that cost us money. We try to make yearly purchases of those to keep those current. We have lost 3 tasers in the last month that we were really stretching out the lifespan on them, and they were, I believe the initial dates on them were the early 2000s when they went into service. So we got 20 years of service out of them, and we were still utilizing them. Unfortunately, we've had 3 of them go down in the last, like I said, about the last 2 months. But we do have funds in there, and we kind of buy a few every year to keep that replacement going. So for the most part, all of that's kind of already maintained in the normal budget that we've been requesting. So these are really our only high dollar items. Vehicles and cameras are about our really big 2 items that are hard to put a $30,000 replacement in there for 2 or 3 car cameras.
And remind me again, our cars, we're running those how many years with the new plan?
The goal is 8 years or 80,000 miles. That's kind of a pretty standard goal for severe duty vehicles that have a lot of idle time on them. I think based on looking at the forecast, obviously you never know making a hire on a new position if the person lives 1 mile away or 28. So it can really change a vehicle's anticipated lifespan. But kind of for the coming few years, it's probably going to be a couple years of 1 vehicle, and then we'll have to jump up to 2, and a couple years of 1. The only problem we're going to have, obviously, the problem we'll have to deal with is, when Mr. Treen was here and we made a big purchase of those initial Durangos, fortunately, they were all bought during the same year. They're very likely going to mile out during the same year, so we want to stay ahead of that. Even if it means that we've got a vehicle with 70,000 and we go ahead and request a replacement, by the time that vehicle gets here and we get it upfitted, which is taking us between 6 and 9 months anyway, we'll really be at that target replacement time.
I'm just thinking we're going to hit a point if we do this with the new cameras. We're going to hit a point that as we get new vehicles, we just need to add new cameras on them, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the goal in the future. Would probably be just to go ahead and factor in that there's going to be an additional 10,000 or so to a replacement vehicle's cost. On the flip side, knowing how good of a product they have, my plan would be that these 14 would be moved at least once or maybe twice to a new vehicle, because likely we could get that usage out of them. before they're just totally, totally beyond economical repair or support. So.
I have one other question. I'm looking at these line items that talk about extended warranty, and the Axon signal unit has 60 months of extended warranty. Then the next line says extended warranty Fleet 3 2-camera kit, 49 months.
I believe that's actually just for the camera head. So basically, the guts of the unit, the control head, and everything that connects to the vehicle, that is underneath the 60-month. Just the actual camera head, I believe, is for the 49. And I may be looking at that a little bit wrong. I'd have to go back and try to get a firm answer on that.
But then when I look down into the warranty at the bundle information, part of it's going into estimated start date of 2/1/2024. But that Fleet 3 2-camera kit estimated start date is 1/1/2025.
That must be they may have made an error in that start date that just generated the wrong.
Yeah, I believe that's probably right.
Well,
I think there's probably
that'd be the difference between 49 months and 60 months warranty.
Yeah. That would probably make more sense. I mean, the estimated end date is still the same on there, 1/31/2029 for the estimated end warranty date. So I think that's probably right. I was pretty certain it's kind of bumper to bumper warranty. It covers everything at the same, but I believe that would make sense. Seeing that the estimated end date is the same on here.
The key is just making sure that at the point that we get them to that 1/31/2029 date, that everything is covered that full duration.
Right. Yeah, and I believe the 2/1/24 date, which is the estimated start date, that was accounting for the lag time in getting the product shipped. So effectively, they will order the product, drop ship it to us, and then their installers will come on site. So they were saying they would have us up and running by February of 2024 was the kind of the goal. So we've got a couple months, but it's letting us lock in the current pricing, which is about 12% lower than what it would be if we ordered after January 1st. So.
Mr. Mayor and Board, I'll say this. I know we have lots of tricky public safety and public works questions, but I think with modern law enforcement, this is a requirement for their safety, and I think the public expects us to provide this as well. And I think the DA's office and the courts are going to expect it. I just think this is a cost we have to find a way to budget. I mean, I understand the concern, and I share it, but I think this is just one of those things that we just got to find a way to make it work. For all angles of this, I think it's just something we have to do.
I was sitting here and I concur because sitting back and, you're saying it's not going to be a one-time cost to the town, right? It's going to be broken up in phases over years. Mm-hmm. Now, as Mr. Howell was saying, with all that taken into consideration with the DA's office and courts and things of that nature and how technology is advancing, preferably the liability and lawsuits. That price of $130 can be wiped out with. You understand? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everybody here understands that. Yeah. So, it may be advantageous for us to do that. Of course, if we wanted to do more homework on it, but I honestly think that when it comes down to the liability or lawsuits for the town or for each individual officer, it's honestly a no-brainer when it comes to that, and especially if you're saying the equipment that we have now and you have to go through all those phases and we're taking away from the bottom line every time we have to pretty much donate the equipment to the DA's office, and we're not getting that back. So every time we have to submit something, we're pretty much losing money that way. I'm not sure how much it is, but at the end of the day, it's a long, lengthy process, and then it's taking time away because you're saying it's going to take hours for you to get that material gathered, and they can hit a couple buttons and go from there. So it makes sense.
All right, Board, any other questions?
No, I agree with everything that Alderman Howe and Alderman Muhammad said, though, because with technology, you've got to incur the expense of keeping up with it. And it's not going to go away, and I'm glad it's not. And it is something that people expect. And if we want to keep our police that we already have and our fire department that we already have, we've got to give them the things they need to be competitive and to be safe. Most.
No, does the fire department, do they have, y'all have cameras? No? Okay, just curious. Okay, now I'm just curious because at the same token, I mean, if that's the case, maybe there can be some kind of joint, agreement with Axon. But at the same token, that was just an interesting question.
That's a good question. Okay. Well, board, I know there was no request for official action, but it sounds like based on what they have described, we could entertain a motion this evening to authorize the town manager to execute this agreement.
Particularly since the quote ends, expiration is 11/30.
Yeah.
Oh, the question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
For Chief Fowl. Now, when this, I know it says on here about something with the software. Now there are the updates to the software that's going to be included in that payment, right?
Right, correct.
Okay,
yes, so as long as we own the units, there obviously there's the much like the body cameras, there's the recurring cost for the storage after. Right. We're kind of paying up front for that in this quote for the initial term. So the only recurring cost after that though would just solely be the storage that we use on their servers. But as far as keeping the units up to date, all that is pushed out digitally.
Okay. I just my concern with that was just to make sure that we're in line and that there's pretty much described in everything that we're putting out there for the units. That's
right.
It.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, board, we will entertain a motion if you're interested to authorize the manager to approve this contract.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we direct the town manager to pursue and approve, execute contract with Axon on this quote for the police department.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Howe.
Second.
Second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that is approved unanimously.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right. Next is our other chief, Chief Lanning.
Mayor and board, how are you tonight?
Good.
So I promised that I will strive to be a little quicker than that. So you got my prepared report before you. There's a couple things that I did make some notes on my sheet that I wanted to go over. The repair to 751. We noticed an oil leak, and making sure that the filter was tight, we realized that there was diesel fuel in the oil, so obviously it was an issue. Was an emergent repair, had no choice but to fix that. Ended up being right at 4,000, which was about half of what we anticipated it being, having to swap out and replace 6 injectors. But it was 4,000 that was unbudgeted. The budget absorbed it. I just want to make you aware in case later in the year we have another expensive fix that, hey, maybe we need to change some things. Crown Vic closed today at about 1:15, and I'm happy to say we tripled what we paid for it. So
there you go.
We'll work with Joel and Finance and Peter to get that paperwork done and get it going. Coffee with the Chiefs. Me and Chief Fowl actually spoke yesterday. Hosted that this morning. Besides town staff, no one showed up yet again. So just kind of wanted some feelers on maybe going to a quarterly event. Maybe, hopefully. Some people would hopefully show up for that. We advertise. It's a reoccurring event on Facebook. We share it. Still no one shows up. So unless someone has some brilliant ideas that I would definitely be willing to listen to.
So can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
I think that if we did it quarterly, but you both stationed your vehicles out front, eventually we'll have a park to do it in with lights on, and we make a sign, Coffee with the Chiefs, and we have coffee and donuts out there, probably going to get some folks that stop in.
Okay. I know when we initially, or I initially began this, I mean, the first couple Peter came, I mean, we were having 6-7 people show up, and it wasn't budgeted, so I was paying out of pocket for coffee donuts on a monthly basis, which was great. It worked. And then we did move it to Bojangles. It was more of a fair playing ground for everybody. And I don't know if I don't think the location, I definitely don't think Chief Fowle's involvement has cause everyone to cease in attending, but something changed, right? People, they quit coming.
I don't think he comes back in right when you say that.
It's your fault nobody comes. So obviously, if you guys see that on your monthly report, that's changing. That's why.
So I do want to say one thing about that. I think it's a great thing that y'all do that. It's unfortunate that we don't have more citizens come. I know for me personally, it's like with work, it's tough to do that at that time. And it's probably like that for a lot of folks.
In the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Majority of people are at work.
But I think it is a wonderful thing. The key is how do we just find a way to get people to it? Yeah. But I think it's wonderful that y'all take the time to do that. The community engagement, the idea behind it is fantastic.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea. We could maybe try to do a little poll and see what people say would be a good time to do it, and try to see what kind of feedback we can get.
I drink coffee all day long, so it could be
Yeah,
afternoon. I'm fine with that. So
people might want to do it at 7:30 in the morning. You never know.
Right. Absolutely.
The other option is that we do the cars out there and we put a dunking booth out there, and we
if they will show up.
I was going to say put me in. We'll put the
I'm
manager
down.
in it.
Okay.
I serve at your pleasure.
That's right.
And I don't know specifics. I met with the school counselor this afternoon. We are yet again. I'm heading up the adopting of families for Christmas for our local schools. As soon as that information becomes available, I will send that out to you guys as well. So hopefully this year will again be a success. The special information portion, and I know that's been there for months, and we have worked with Mr. DeLuca from the league. Conversation last month and preliminary conversation between myself, Chief Isle, and Peter is his recommendation is for us, and obviously it'd be a planning session conversation, but to explore a company called Lexapol. It's a one-time fee, but then it's also a reoccurring. They will go through all of both fire and police policies, make sure that they are legally sound and cover us. Would something happen and we'd be, sued or held liable for an injury, that our policies will not at least be the weakness there. Obviously, I know Rockwell had just maybe done that. Chief Isle was going to explore that a little further. But that's all that they do. They go through fire and police policies and revise those, give us recommendations, what they'll will stand and not stand in court, make sure we're covered. So
it's a policy audit.
It is.
Effectively.
Okay. And that's what that whole program I was doing with them is in turn would actually lower our insurance rate through the league. And was just going through with a fine tooth comb all of our policies, what do we need to do mainly for risk reduction. So make sure we're doing the best that we can. If you do not have any questions for me, that is my report. I do think Peter had brought up maybe going over the preliminary conversation that we had with East Spencer. So if you guys would like me to do that, I can go into that as well.
Yeah, it'd be great to get an update.
Sure, and I thought I was going to mention that during my report, but you're here, so why not?
Sure.
We'll make Joel wait some more.
That's right.
Yes, so there has been an initial staff level conversation about fire service here in Spencer and in East Spencer, and that we're both having some shared challenges with staffing. And, basically the question that we posed to our neighbors is, can we talk about this and see what it might look like to work together, not knowing exactly what that looks like, what it means, but can we have the conversation? And so we had an initial meeting between the managers and the chiefs, and I know that Mr. Douglas actually had this similar conversation as we're having right now with the board in East Spencer last night, and the feedback from East Spencer's board was, yes, let's have the conversation. One other piece of the conversation they had is that they are planning, similar to us, the need for improved facilities. They talked about pursuing some loan funding, I think to the tune of $5 million to pursue that project, and they also want to continue going down that road as well. Meanwhile, here we have our own capital project. We also both have new engines on order, and so there's a lot that kind of gets intertwined, but Chief Lanning will jump in and talk a little bit more operationally, but that's the overview of, we think it makes sense at this point to just talk about it and see, is there a better model? We know there's models out there. They're not too common here about this type of sharing of fire services. You might see them elsewhere. I do know we have a local model on the law enforcement side where the towns of Granite Quarry and Faith partner for police services, for example. And that has been in place for a long time and seems to be working well. So we think it's something that's worth exploring. One of the reasons that we came to that conclusion is we've been looking at, you know, the idea of how we deal with our staffing issues in trying to get to a full-time. And we think, for example, the net cost of adding 6 full-time firefighters to our current budget would be $260,000 a year. That's where we experience some savings, but some additional costs, and that's the net change, $260,000. So it just makes you say, well, what might it look like for us to partner, and then suddenly we're able to share in that amount and collectively better protect both communities somehow. You want to jump in?
Yeah, so myself and Chief McBride, all three of their chiefs have had conversation since mine and Peter's, and Mr. Douglas's conversation. And I think at a quick glance, it is a really good idea. It's kind of one of those things, the more we look at it, it's like, you know, then there's this, then there's this. You know, we talked about facilities. We both have facility needs. Perfect world, we identify somewhere dead center and we build a joint complex. Where's the land that's, you know, is it available? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, sort of saying Transportation Museum Roundhouse.
Take the roundhouse.
And then, like Peter spoke on the debt, you know, we're going to have debt service for our engine. They just ordered one last month, so they're going to have debt service for that as well. The number one thing that keeps getting brought up is the identity. Who gets to lose their identity, right? This is our 120th year that Spencer Fire Department has existed. We don't want to lose 120 years of history. Probably no more than you guys want us to. They feel the exact same way. The biggest thing for me right now in conversations with our ISO inspector, if we do this, we will result in a split rating. Which is not the end of the world, but it's not going to be an ISO class 2 either. So that, you know, there's give and take, there's pros and cons with this. You know, and what really dictates that is if we had a full-time staffed engine at Spencer with this merger, some annexation on Bringle Ferry is either happening or just happened. We can't respond there in the time limit that ISO says, nor is it within a 5-mile district. And that's your two options for ISO. On the flip side, Hawkinstown, East Spencer couldn't make it there within, we're having the same issue. So again, do I think it's worth exploring? Absolutely. I think any rock left unturned is an injustice. But there's a lot of what ifs. I think for me personally, the flip side is that I hope we don't explore this and decide in 6 months, hey, it's not a good idea and we're in no better shape than we are today. So I think, like I said, maybe it can work.
I think it's worth definitely exploring.
Absolutely.
We don't have anything to lose with that.
Most definitely.
And they don't either.
Yep, I agree.
We'll just have to see where it takes.
Absolutely.
But you brought up a lot of things to consider.
So are the two, I guess the two obvious models, I'm assuming these are both lawful, but one would be one town contracting with the other to provide coverage. And I'm assuming the contracting entity would essentially absorb staff from the other town, right?
So that, yes, and that in itself plays a whole nother confusing piece. They have 3 paid chiefs. If we absorb, let's just say we absorb 100%, the model of 6 paid chiefs would never make any sense. So how do you do that? Sure. That's, some murky water there.
Sounds to me like if we were able to build one fire station with a tunnel under the railroad, and we could house and
we just
you could still have separate, but you're building one facility and you figure out a way to staff it together. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not a half bad idea.
And do they make vertical poles?
That's where the zip line comes back in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is we got to explore all options, and some of them may have to be very creative options.
I agree,
but we'd be remiss not to explore it.
Do you know of any fire departments in close proximity from different municipalities that have joined together like this?
So the only one here in the county that I am aware of is what is now West Rowan Fire Department. At one point, now granted it's volunteer, there's 4 separate organizations that come together, and now they're all under one. Contracted services is pretty normal. And I think it's maybe there's one towards in Wake County where they kept their individual names, but it's all one. I'm not going to say it didn't work, but like Mr. Williams said, we would have to get very creative. And I think it's a possibility.
Boundary limitations with the fact we really only got one access point.
Yeah. Without going into
honestly, that may be the toughest challenge of any of them. Yeah. Just from a distance and logistics standpoint. But it's worth the conversation.
What's their ISO rating?
They are currently a class 5.
5.
And the one thing to think about too, and I think Steve would echo this, with this commercial growth, if we drop ratings, then that can change that and alter that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do anything to jeopardize growth.
Again, a word of caution. Did this years ago. At the time, unfortunately, East Spencer was not the fire department that it is today. Sure. And we spent, I would say, half of our time fighting their structure fires. And they, a lot of times they wouldn't even show up. If we go in this direction, it could morph into something, shared police department, shared public works. I mean, where do you draw the line? The same thing applies not just in municipalities, but also out in the county. Fortunately, we enjoy a lot better monetary support here in town than a lot of the rural departments. Case in point, Ellis.
Absolutely.
Ellis found itself in the unfortunate position of fighting all the fires assigned to Boston Heights because their staff had become so lazy or missing that they never showed up for fires. So Ellis was already stretched to their limits in terms of budget, or having to go outside of their jurisdiction. So it's a double-edged sword. So beware, be cautious.
Well, and I
know it's all in the realm of public safety, but if you get into the point where you are finding yourself over there more and more often, again, we're using our equipment, we're using our resources, and that's what mutual aid is for. If you get into a problem, or you're on that first call assignment, then you're expected to be there. And I would just make sure that you're met halfway.
Sure.
Whenever you're doing this.
What I know currently, and I mean, I feel that it's public knowledge. We do respond to East Spencer a lot at night after their set hours, just due to some facility needs and their ability to accommodate maybe nighttime staffing. And we do so in a gentleman's agreement, because I remember being part-time here under a former fire chief, and they did the exact same thing for us. So, like I have told McBride and the other 2 chiefs, our working relationship's the best it's ever been. And what I don't want through this process is to be us versus them, but how can we come together to be a better one? So hopefully we can explore that and navigate that. Any additional questions for me?
Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing. Are you ready, Mr. Taylor? Are you sure?
Look at that spring in his step.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
Well, I can just sum mine up. Leaves, trash, and Christmas lights. What he just put the 3 minutes up.
Be safe.
Yeah. So, and I'm done. No, yeah.
You have my report? That's it.
You have my report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest up. Our time is coming in a couple of weeks.
There you go. There you go. Leaves, trash, and Christmas lights. That pretty much sums up our life for this week, this month. Just a reminder, though, the week of Thanksgiving, there will not be a bulky pickup that week because we are off on Thursday and Friday. So we'll just do trash Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Just a reminder on that. I know the town manager included one of his updates about the deficiency letter that we received about the dam at Standback Park. We have done quite a bit of work over there to get the siphon running again, the dam cleaned off, and we met with the engineers this morning, and he's getting our stuff kind of laid out for DEQ so that we're going to be in compliance with them on that. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. We did have a lot of different discussions this morning. What it will, what it won't. We kind of gave him what we're thinking to make sure we keep that pool for the dock, and then but get us off that high hazard list is the ultimate goal, and just kind of get rid of that problem altogether. So we are doing that. If you noticed at all, the oak tree at the library park is now not there. After I saw the base of it, I am very happy that that tree is not there any longer. It had a rotten spot in the center of it, probably the size of a basketball. Complete split all the way up one side, and he hit 2 pieces of metal in the base of that tree, sawing it. So yeah, we're glad that tree's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So that just a lot of times you cut them and you're like, shouldn't have done that, you know. But I'm glad that one. So I'm pricing right now to get the stumps removed, and we'll get that flower bed reformed, and we'll get a nice sized tree to put back in its place. Just for that. Sanitation truck, we had an issue with it the end of last week, a hydraulic leak on the front. CES was very good. They sent someone down, they picked it up, they fixed it, and it was sitting back at my gate Monday morning to go back to work. So it has been running really well. We've been picking it off one at a time with the problem side. Monday we started with about 10 problem areas. Now we're down to 2, which are still, you know, we're working. We're trying to get those, but that's how we're going about it. We're just doing it one at a time, individual, trying to make sure that everybody knows where it's going. Some people have a preference. They like a dot painted where they want their can put. Some just like, hey, we told them, and everybody's doing fine. So I really feel in the upcoming, I think we're going to end up going back to a 4-day route just because of the growth. Clyde Street in itself has already added 5 cans, and they're fixing to add 2 more. So this other growth, I think it's really going back to a 4-day route, just so the guys can get done and get to the landfill. That's the main thing, because they shut the landfill at 3:30. So for us to get done and get up there by the end of dump, be ready to go the next day, you know, we're having to cut Sam a little short every day. So, but we'll work it out. It's going really well. You can see the schedule of kind of when the lights are going to be going up. CCAP, I touched base briefly with Cindy. I didn't get a response, but I do know that she has submitted our stuff for permits. We're just kind of waiting to hear back from them as soon as the permits go through, and of course that's through DEQ. So as soon as
we've been waiting 2 months on a permit for a job,
exactly. So as soon as we hear back from the permits, and then we'll be cut loose to do, get our contractor set and get that moving on, so we can get it done by the end of the year. I think that was all. That was all. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy.
Any questions, board? You were the fastest.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you're doing.
You're welcome.
Town looks great. Doing the lights. All right. Finance Department.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have an update for you on our audit. It has been submitted and approved, and they will be here next month to present that to us.
Awesome. So the LGC has it.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. We are good to go with that. So
Very good.
do you guys have any questions from the report, from my report with our that I put in the packet?
So board, any questions on the financial report for the month? I don't think so.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I will let you know that with our administrative assistant position, we've got some promising candidates.
Good.
So I look forward to bringing those in. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. And is Anna still with us for the library report?
Sky Island's up there too.
Oh, you are on mute.
Thank you. All right, good evening again. Yes, you all have the library report, and this past month there was a fall craft event, as well as an event where some local citizens shared their experiences traveling abroad to help the kids kind of get a better idea of what else is out there. And then we have several big events coming up in December. There is it's a two-part event on December 8th from 6 to 8. And part of it is music, and the other part is a comedian. And there's some information about that on both the library and the town Facebook pages. And then on the 19th, they'll be reading Christmas stories and making crafts at 3 p.m.
All right, great. Thank you. Board, any questions on the library report? All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. All right. Town manager report.
Yes, and Sky is with us now. She unfortunately had a power outage earlier, but she is here now, and she would like to add a few comments. And I let her know that we did get to talk about the trunk or treat event, but I think she'd like to add a few comments if y'all are okay with that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Good evening, Sky.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. So I bring news from Trunk or Treat. We had our biggest year of our 2 years. This year we had over 100 new children come to the event, and last year we started with 10 trunks. This year we have 16 trunks. Our partnership with Rowan County Social Services Department was extremely fruitful, and they have expressed interest in doing it again with us next year. And Kyle and I have already begun planning some interesting new tweaks on the event that we hope will make it a bit more refined, a bit more professional, and will hopefully attract even more children to the town. I wanted to give some special thanks and shout outs to the police department for providing event coverage, to Chief Lanning and the fire department for providing event first aid coverage, and to Joel Taylor and the public works department for providing cones and trash cans. I'd also like to thank Peter Franzese for allowing us to put on this event again. I think it brought a lot of smiles to people's face and put a bright, happy Halloween face on Spencer, at least for the night. Thank you all for allowing us to do the event, and I hope you're excited for next year because we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sky, thank you, and Kyle especially. I know y'all worked very hard to pull it all together, so really appreciative for that. I don't know about it getting more professional. I thought Mario was about as professional as you could get. I thought you had hired him for the night, but
Well, when I say professional, means we got to add a Luigi in there as well.
That's right.
apparently there's a costume I hear.
Oh, excellent. Good to hear. Good to hear. Jay
Well,
will
thank
be
thank
Luigi
you very
next
much,
year.
Sky.
We'll see
Thank
if
you very
Mario
much.
can have real overalls next year. How about that?
All right.
Improve it.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Scott.
evening. All right, town manager
Yep.
report.
And I'll note a few things. I was again planning that we might have the discussion about the fire services. We've taken care of that. One of the things I wanted to note is the partnership we're forging with Ruffey Home Senior Center to help us carry out our events that have historically happened here with the Senior Council or the Council of Churches. I think that's kind of been the same group of people that have formed into different names, but we've met a few times. Ruffey Homes, I believe they've had their own meeting with some folks. I haven't heard yet how that went, but they are very enthusiastic about working with us on this, and I think it's a win-win to help expose more people to their services and have a good group of folks at Ruffey Homes that are able to take this on and do a great job with it, and maybe allow some of the people that have been working so hard on the event here to just enjoy it, right? But they also have other services that they can provide in addition to these twice a year meals that they've done. And I think the town, I found out the town had actually at some point had some of those provided, fitness classes and different things. So looking forward to continuing to talk with them and explore all that.
I hear they do stained glass making classes. Sign me up for that.
Oh yeah,
I feel like I qualify.
Any questions or comments about that?
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's we talk about youth programming, but then also the senior programming is so important here in Spencer. And glad we have a site that we can do those lunches, and glad we have a countywide partner that's interested in working with us.
Sure.
I am.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, and we may be hearing about the parade later. I have a feeling we may be hearing about that, but I wanted to specifically make sure if anybody's interested in being part of the town's float on the parade this year to certainly let me know, and we'll make sure the float doesn't leave without you. But that's been a fun event the last few years to participate on the float and have family, kids involved, etc. Again, we're just about a week away, so that's something for our elected officials, staff, volunteers, community members. If you're interested in being part of the town float, certainly reach out to me and we'll get you signed up.
I would love to, only if Mr. Miller allows me off my duty that day. Nope. Okay. Never mind.
Give me it.
And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for the manager? All right. Hearing none, we will move to request and comments from the mayor and board. Mr. Miller.
Okay, I'd like to say something about, I don't want to brag about Kyle and Sky for what they've done. They've done a tremendous job. I think the highlight of anybody seeing the town grow is how many young families we get involved. And, I was up there several times and it seemed to be a great turnout. I think the kids had a good time, good and safe. Kyle and Sky did an outstanding job, and I do appreciate what y'all done. And I think we can build on this and make it even better. Maybe with the park out in front with it, maybe make it a little bit better. How about that? And I guess I'm supposed to say something about the Christmas parade. The Christmas parade is coming up. And we do have a volunteer meeting coming up Thursday night at 6:30 here. And we're always looking for volunteers to help us with the parade because it's great to be able to see the parade and see all the wonderful things with it. But behind the drop, there's a lot of people that put on a lot of important parts getting the parade put together properly. And we're always looking for good help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Morgan.
There are a lot of things coming up. within the next month. Winterfest, first 2 weekends in December, both Friday and Saturdays. So hope that everyone can come and participate and be a part of a very special event. Kudos again to all of our staffs and all their hard work, especially to Joel and his bunch. I know that you'll probably be catching extra hours of sleep over the next few nights in preparation of what's coming down the road within the next, say, 2 weeks or so. But again, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Howe.
Yeah, just to echo both Mr. Morgan and Mr. Miller, lots of neat things coming. Please come out, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your relatives, tell them to do the same. I think with all these events, anytime there's a seamless event that seems easy and uneventful, it means that it's been perfectly executed and perfectly planned. So lots of hard work, like Mr. Miller said, behind the scenes. But so, please come out and do that. But I want to close by thanking the man to my left for his time. His time is growing short on the board. I'm going to miss him sitting beside me.
Growing short.
Gosh. He is a servant of the town. And, here in this room, though we often agree, we don't always agree. There's debate and discussion. But what's, I think, never been in doubt that Mr. Morgan cares about Spencer, both past, present, future. And he cares about the direction of the town and the people in it. And I'm going to miss his viewpoints. I hope he'll still come yell at us from time to time and get us straight.
Oh, I promise I'll do that.
And just, I
shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have done that. That way y'all won't be held accountable for what I say. I assure you.
But Mr. Morgan, I personally thank you for being my seatmate for 2 years, and I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. When you said growing short, I thought you were talking about the guy on your right. Ms. Sledge.
Well, Sam, I'm glad that you're here tonight because I wanted to acknowledge all the stuff that you've done in connection with this events here in the town, and tell people about this Doodah Parade, which is your baby. Yeah, and thanks to the people who came out to the polls to vote on last Tuesday, because I was handing these out and telling people about Doodah. I didn't give them any voting instructions and didn't even tell them who I was. Ask them if they wanted a piece of candy and ask them to come to the Doodah Parade. But everybody I talked to was really excited about this. I had one lady say, "Oh my gosh, I came down here from up north, and this is the first time I've ever heard anybody in the South say anything about a Doodah Parade." So, the people were really excited about it. And I want to invite everybody who hears this to bring their kids, to bring their bike or wagon or scooter or stroller or anything with wheels.
Anything that moves.
Anything that moves. And I've got a new stroller for Charlie, but I don't think he'll be allowed on the premises. But meet at the Kids Corner Activity Tent from 5 to 5:55 on December the 1st to decorate your wheels and make a craft to carry alongside the parade route. The parade will be through the parking lot here with Winterfest, and this will be the kickoff event. The parade is going to begin at 6 o'clock. And you can ride, walk, or dance your way along the parade route as it winds through the marketplace and ends at the Christmas tree. And then our mayor will flip the switch, I think, to light the big Christmas tree.
I don't know. Do I flip it? I think the big guy might.
The big guy? Well, Santa Claus is arriving at that time, too. So all you kids come and bring your stuff and get in the parade and meet Santa Claus. So I have more of these things to hand out. I made more copies because I ran out during the voting thing, so I made more copies. So I'll leave some around, and I think I'm going to distribute some at Food Line in the next couple of days.
Well, thank you for publicizing that. I've heard lots of folks walking around town calling you the Doodah Lady.
Well, let's just say I've been called worse.
You and me both.
And again, thank you all the staff for everything that you've done. There's a lot of work going on. There's still a lot to be done, but thanks to everybody who's willing to pitch in. I didn't wear my badge tonight that says "Get involved." You live here, but you live here, so get involved. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Muhammad.
Where do we start? Well, Mr. Morgan, you'll be missed. Thank you for your support, your dedication, your service to the town, which I know is not going to end, even though you're not sitting up front.
No, I hope not.
I already know it's not.
I don't plan on it.
You know, whether it came from, behind the scenes work, the movie nights at the ballpark, the
cruise
ins, and just being involved. And at the end of the day, you may motivate others to do the same, and which you probably have already done and don't even know that yet. But however, just want to, congratulate you on your retirement up front.
What's that?
But no, seriously, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But on another note, Kyle, good work. Sky, all the departments, continue doing what y'all are doing. The town's looking great. I know we got a long way to go still. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Make sure residents, whoever's listening, tuning in, the Doodah Parade. You got Winterfest coming up. You got two weekends of that in a row. Very exciting. Tell all your friends, family, neighbors. You also have the Polo Express that's taking place across the street as well. So there's a lot of fun and exciting things that are going on here in this town, and there's going to be a whole lot of more exciting things to come. And with that being said, hope that everybody has a blessed and safe holiday season as we approach them all.
One thing that I wanted to mention also, and I recognize Mr. Taylor and his department, my sister who lives in Asheville, which is supposed to be the Christmas town, was here with me on Friday and Saturday, and she got to see the town all decked out. She had come with her daughter and granddaughter for Polar Express, and she was just enthralled with it. They all were, about how pretty it was. And then she said, "And your town picks up leaves." She said, "You wouldn't believe the property tax we pay," and they have to get a contractor to come in and get their leaves. She says, "So y'all have a lot better services than we do," and she's in Asheville city limits. So again, thank you for all you've done and keep doing, and thank you, Chief Lanning, for everything your department's doing. Joel, y'all, thank you very much. And to our new finance officer, we do have top-notch employees. And before I finish, I want to also put out a call for more Winterfest volunteers. You can go to spencerexperience.org and find volunteer, and you can fill out a easy form if you're interested. And there's all kinds of opportunities and several different time slots. And we are still looking and searching for volunteers. So please make sure that you check into that. Or you can get in touch with me or with Pat. Pat does a lot with the volunteer, and she's out running it, so praise God. I want you to enjoy the parade next Wednesday, all of you, and Thanksgiving. And make sure you try to participate and go see the parade. And Sam, it has been a productive 4 years, right?
Well, yeah, 4 years in a row, but 2 years, 2005 to 2007. So, and 30 years on the fire department, so it's 36 years public service.
Yes, and your knowledge base has really, really helped us. And you always present interesting perspectives, things that we need to think about, and that's good.
Well,
we don't
I appreciate that. I'm a lot like my mother. My mother only opened her mouth to change feet. Not all the time.
You're right. Go.
But I encourage the board to ask questions. I think it's good to have different viewpoints on any kind of matter.
Absolutely.
And you know, we didn't always agree, and there's still some sore points with me, especially involving code enforcement. That'll never go away. But still, this town has moved tremendously, I think, in the right direction in the past 4 years, and I was glad to be a part of it. And I hope it will continue. I hope that I live long enough to enjoy a beautiful park out front. And again, this goes back to something that I said to Chief Fowle and Chief Lanning last month. I would still hope for a more a community of more involved people. I think that's one of the things that I don't know if it's that the temerity involved, that maybe people are timid or they're hesitant. Get involved. You know, just there's so much that can be done, so much to volunteer. You know, the community is always looking for people to help with public works, people to help on the fire department, the police department, and every other aspect of this town. And the only way it's going to progress and go forward is that people work together regardless of their opinions. They can lay those aside. The main thing is to keep the best interest in the town. Keep that as the focal point. And again, in deference to Steve Blunt, you know, you've heard me say many times that I am against development. Not all development. I don't want to see, as I've said many times before, I don't want to see Spencer become another Mooresville or another Concord or another Huntersville. I like the small town atmosphere. I want to, but I don't want us to remain stuck. I want the town to move forward and improve its lot. And there are many ways to do that. So, but I'm glad I was a part of it. And I hope that I can continue to add my 2 cents worth from the podium over on that side. So, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the compliments. I appreciate it.
You only get 3
Well, and I'll say,
minutes.
no, I was going to say, you get more than 2 cents. You get 3 minutes worth.
3 minutes.
Start
You get that short.
Start the camera. Start
We're gonna put the timer on.
So I think the board has pretty much said it all. Again, Mr. Morgan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work with you. We're going to have a chance next month at our meeting to recognize you properly for
a new car.
It might be a 2006 Crown Vic from.
Yeah, that's it. That old one they got rid of 20 years ago. Here it is.
But we'll have a chance to welcome a new board member next month, but then also to properly recognize Mr. Morgan as an outgoing board member. So I hope everybody will join us for that. I also want to point out, again, our staff does a wonderful job. I think y'all have heard that a lot tonight, and hopefully we always do a proper job in recognizing the things that you do for us in the town. But I also want to make sure that we recognize a few other people tonight. One of those is Steve Miller for his work with the parade committee. And those volunteers that serve on the steering committee for the parade to represent Spencer. We're real fortunate to have you all and y'all that have stepped up and helped lead that. And I also want to say that we're very fortunate to be able to have the parade in Spencer as a joint event with our two communities in Spencer and Salisbury. So we're really grateful that the committee puts it on and continues to include Spencer as a community in it. The other thing I want to say is a big thank you to our Winterfest coordinators. And we've got a couple of those leaders here geez, I look down the road, and it's almost all of the board's been involved in some capacity, but I know Ms. Sledge and Ms. Sechrist coordinating volunteers, spreading the word, and Mr. Miller is the official golf cart driver, and I think wreath hauler, and I don't know, a whole bunch of different things. So appreciate everything everybody's been doing. I think there's an opportunity on November 25th to help out with some Christmas trees. Is that right?
That's the right date.
Okay.
That is what I've been told.
Okay. All right. So there's an opportunity then to help offload some Christmas trees that are going to be coming in and getting those set up. So if you can spare even an hour, that's about all it takes if we have enough people to do it. So,
and I think the time is 3:30.
ETA 3:30-ish.
When the trees will arrive.
And speaking of that, the football team some of them are going to be here to help with that. So I think that's good that our kids are giving back to the community. They're coming with a couple of their coaches and also helping with taking down Winterfest.
Great. Hopefully they're still playing around that time.
Well, I know they could be. And that's another thing. Make sure you go Friday night to the game.
That's right.
Right here at North Rowan.
That's right. Lots of exciting stuff happening. So it's a great time to be in Spencer. It's a great time to serve Spencer. So thanks for all that y'all all are doing, staff and board members and our community. All right. With that, is there a need to go into executive session this evening? All right. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
The motion by Mr. Morgan, second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor?
That's right.
All right. All opposed? We stand adjourned. That is
Sayonara.
approved unanimously.
Joel.